Alright, g'day everyone, welcome back to Prune Gaming for something a little bit different today, ICBM Escalation. You might have noticed this channel often has significant breaks. That usually happens when I have to travel, which I often have to do for work, can't take my PC with me, and unfortunately the laptop won't run Terra Invicta well, and if I tried to run X4 on it, the thing would probably melt. So what I finally decided to do is find a couple of titles that I can run on the laptop while I'm traveling, and ICBM Escalation is near the top of my list. This is essentially, I'll give you a quick summary, a globe-spanning strategy game covering the period roughly late 1940s through to the 2040s, with a tech tree that runs all the way from the invention of the first fission weapons all the way through to, things like orbital drop pods for special forces teams. It's a title that can be played in a number of ways. What you're looking at here is the skirmish mode, where you take on one of the major powers, and you can customize this to a great extent. In which case, this is really a nuclear war simulator, for lack of a better term. You start with relatively basic technology, you research more, and then as those technologies are developed, humanity unleashes those systems inevitably on each other until very little is left. It can also be played in a multiplayer format, which I find very interesting because then you can imagine ideas like deterrence shining through, deterrence, betrayal, diplomacy, because players might understand better than a very aggressive AI can that there might be consequences if they launch a war against an opponent that's equipped with a whole bunch of very, very, very dangerous weapon systems. Let's put it that way. And then finally, you can play it in the campaign mode, which is what I'm going to be showing off today. At the moment, the game's got two campaigns, a US campaign and a Soviet campaign, and a third DLC one is on the way shortly, so I figured we'd get started. Of the two, the American campaign, I'm told, is meant to be the easier, more introductory one, to introduce you slowly to the concept of the game as each mission gets steadily more complicated, covering a time period from 1950 all the way through to the 2040s. As someone else described it to me, it's meant to teach you the game, convince you you're good at it, and then break your heart at the end of the campaign with the inevitability of losses in the face of all-out nuclear warfare. So I think it makes sense to start with the US campaign, and then if there's interest, move on to the Soviet one afterwards, and then potentially the DLC campaign. But you know me, when a game tells you there's a way it should be played, my first instinct is to try and find a way to not play it that way. And so what I'm going to be trying to do is play a game which is about escalation management and potentially nuclear warfare without using any nuclear weapons, minimizing collateral damage, and trying to come out the other side with the most optimistic outcome possible. So rather than talking through the concepts and giving you a long-winded introduction, I'm going to jump straight into the campaign. We can walk through the game mechanics from there. With one caveat up front, I have already played the first mission before I decided to cover the game. Wanted to figure out if it was good first. So we'll zip through the first scenario, which is the Korean War, and then settle in to play properly from mission 2 onwards. Okay, so here we are in mission 1 of the American campaign. The campaign is called MacArthur's Revenge, although we won't be going down the MacArthur was right school of thought. So mission 1 is the Korean War, but a slightly tweaked version of it, and I think that's going to carry through for the entire campaign. So here's our scenario briefing. The North Korean army, backed up by Chinese forces, has spilled over the 38th parallel and into South Korea. UN and American forces are outnumbered. American forces are UN forces, surprised and rapidly losing ground. Allied forces are starting to rally and find their footing, but they won't hold out for long without proper leadership and reinforcements. The US government is deciding whether or not to authorize the use of nuclear weapons. At this moment, only the US and Soviet Union have access to nukes. There are three big questions. Will nuclear weapons be used? If they are, what will happen next? And lastly, can Korea be saved? And what these missions, I'm told, all do is they have a primary mission, which is the basic level of completion, and then some secondary missions which encourage you, as the name of the game suggests, to push the escalation barrier just a little bit more. So our primary goal here is to occupy, recapture, and hold Seoul when the timer runs out. Do not let communist forces reach Busan and overrun South Korea. The secondary mission is to capture and hold Pyongyang and Chongqing, annexing North Korea, and also capture a Chinese territory and force a Chinese withdrawal, which I'm sure sounds like a fantastic idea, but is likely to prompt some kind of a response. So this is the basic format of the game. The Korean scenario is relatively limited. It's mostly focused on the Korean Peninsula. We have the Soviet Union over here, we have the US over there, but we don't have control of any assets there. We're just the commander of the Korean theater. So it's a top-down strategy title. And as you can see, in terms of layout, at the start of the game, we have one UN division. I believe we're playing as the United Nations, allied with South Korea. So the other players in the game being the Soviet Union, the PRC, and North Korea. We have a single division in Seoul, 6 North Korean divisions that will probably storm south shortly after. So my first plan is to bugger off down south. So we'll issue a move order for that army division down that way. So my plan here, noting that I'll play through this scenario, I've already seen it before, so there won't be too many surprises for me here, hopefully, but we can learn the basics as we go. My goal is to make sure that the enemy does not occupy Seoul fully, but at the same time, we don't lose any divisions by taking a fight that we can't handle. The way you occupy cities in this game is you just keep a division nearby for a certain period of time, the amount of time required corresponding to the population. If you manage to occupy all cities in a region, that region flips control. So let's have a look at our forces. We got 2 submarines, the USS Pickerel and the USS Catfish. I'm going to send one towards China, one towards the Soviet Union, so we can keep an eye on their respective naval forces. We have 2 carriers, HMS Triumph and USS Valley Forge. Carriers, each carrying 30 multi-role attackers. I'm going to turn off this thing here, which is auto-engage, which is the mode where carriers automatically send their aircraft off to fight things if they see them. I'm going to turn that off for the moment, for the simple reason that, from my limited experience so far, aircraft in this game are amazing, but they are glass cannons. I'm also going to ungroup those fleets, which is why I cancelled orders there. By default, fleets operate as a cohesive unit, so all these ships were following the carrier. They do tend to spread out when they do that though, which is great if you want to survive nuclear attack, but I like them grouped a little bit closer together. So we'll select all these ships, and we're just going to get everyone to move up to the Korean Peninsula as fast as mechanically possible. Same thing with the Triumph, which is being followed by HMS Cossack. We'll take both those ships, send them up towards Korea as fast as we can. Okay, so naval reinforcements on the way. We also have some landing ships that have divisions. If you simply click on the division and in an area, the landing ship will drop them off. We want to get as many troops into the play as quickly as possible, so we'll drop those 2 divisions off. And then we have 3 divisions in Japan. In this game, transport aircraft are attached to these facilities, army barracks, so you can actually fly your divisions as long as you can get them to a base and you have transport aircraft to move them. Finally, we have an airbase. It's equipped with fighters and strategic bombers. We're going to turn auto-engage off there as well, because as I said, aircraft are a bit of a glass cannon in this game. They do a lot of damage, they have a lot of versatility, but you lose a bunch of them and you end up spending a lot of industrial effort replacing them. Speaking of industrial effort, let's talk about the economy system in this game. You have national GDP. It's relatively simple. Provinces generate GDP, and then you can split that GDP between science and construction. The science, obviously advancing this huge tech tree with, I have to say, some pretty detailed descriptions that are pretty on the point for most of these technologies. So we'll note them as we go. So you can just slide this bar at the top here between construction and science. And at the start, what I'm going to do is basically go full construction, because I want to get material out as fast as possible, then worry about research. Instead of sending my aircraft in to fight the North Korean and Chinese MiGs, I'm going to start by pumping out an anti-aircraft gun sight. Very, very quick unit to produce, just a basic self-propelled anti-aircraft gun. And then I'm going to go into a cruiser, a resupply ship. Cruisers are heavy surface combatants. These aren't just cruisers. I think early in the game, these also represent things like battleships. They're your heavy surface bombardment and later your missile deploying surface warships, but they're vulnerable to submarines and they're expensive. But shore bombardment is kind of what we want here. I'm imagining like Des Moines with rapid fire guns or maybe battleships to rain the fire on the North Koreans. Resupply ships heal everything in their radius. So that'll hopefully keep our cruiser and later our other ships up to spec. And also they can be used to heal troops on the land. So we'll use that to regenerate the troops that we ship over to Korea. After that, we'll go to bases and facilities. So you can see we can build air bases, forward operating bases, army bases, huge array of units, and we'll discover these as we play through the game. But I'm going to start with an intelligence center, which boosts your spies. Speaking of spies, it's controlled this way. By default, your spy activity is directed against all the other players in the game and doing a bunch of things at once. You're locating their stuff, finding out what they're researching, how many weapons they have, what tech they have, stopping them from spying on you. And this is the most, I believe, the most efficient way of doing it, because you can imagine you're Chinese speakers are busy spying on China, and your economic specialists are busy looking at their economic system, while your Russian speakers are probably spying on the Soviet Union. But you can chop away different activities. It's not as efficient, but you can focus more and more effort. So now, Joe from the China office is now actually assigned to the Soviet office. Maybe he's only bringing copies and photocopying, but he's accomplishing something, and it's better than doing everything at once. Why am I doing this here? All I'm cutting this down to is spying on the Soviet Union with only 2 missions: identify tech and steal tech. Why? Well, we say we want an optimistic answer to this campaign, so we need to leverage the systems that the game gives us. And the 2 things that carry over between campaign missions in this game are 1, how many secondary missions you accomplish, and 2, your research. If you unlock technology, it's available in the next mission. So I hope that if we can get enough ahead in the right technologies, we should have enough of an advantage later on that we can potentially change the tide of history for the better, optimistically. And if our conventional forces are so good, perhaps we can avoid using these little tempting things up here, our light 100 kiloton bombs, which I imagine later will be a more substantial nuclear arsenal. I'm going to set a technology to research, starting with a technology called Defense Research Agency, which boosts research speed and allows you to build a research center. But as you can see, it will take forever to complete because at the moment I'm doing 100% production. I'm happy with that for the moment. As the United States, here's the plan. I think what we're going to do is focus on a couple of types of conventional war technology and the supporting economics. I really want to push the Navy, the Air Force, and then to an extent the ground forces. I then want to basically completely ignore weapons of mass destruction, ballistic missiles, probably not do surface-to-air missiles, de-emphasize a bunch of other tech, and instead steal that technology from the Soviet Union. Because if I get far enough behind, they'll get ahead of me in those areas. I can steal that tech, not fall too far behind overall, while pushing ahead with the stuff that I really care about. The tech system in this game punishes you for rushing ahead. You're in an era, at the moment we're in era 1, the atomic age. Unlocking technology steadily moves this bar up the top, which pushes you into the space age, the early digital age, etc. If you research a technology from an age ahead of where you are, you can do it. You're just paying, you pay a premium in order to do so. So we'd like to push the ages as fast as possible. And if we can steal a bunch of tech from the Soviet Union, all the better. So that's the broad plan. We're going to get a couple of units out. We might go... I might get a different result than the first time I played this, but this is what I'm going to try and go with initially. So we've limited our spies to the Soviets to steal technology. We're moving all of our troops as rapidly as possible to form basically the historical Busan pocket, but I want to do it far enough to the north that they don't get too comfortable around Seoul. I don't want Seoul to fall because I'd like my South Korean allies to keep building units, and a lot of their GDP is obviously in Seoul. What you see marked around these units, by the way, is the sign that they are entrenched. It takes 60 seconds for a ground unit to entrench, and when it does so, it takes less damage, has a longer range, and I think later on it also has additional anti-aircraft weapons as well that only work when it's entrenched. So we're going to bravely run away from the South Korean capital, run the clock, and I think we're ready to go. There we go. Game on. North Korean forces are attacking Seoul. We're outnumbered, and you'll have to send reinforcements from Japan. We have 2 landing ships in the area and can send planes from Itazuke. 2 carrier groups have been rerouted from the South China Sea. Hold Busan at all costs. We will do that, but we will run the heck away from Seoul while we wait for these divisions to get into the army base, and then we're going to fly them over and try and form a perimeter roughly around this section here while our anti-aircraft gun is ready. So to deploy units, divisions need to be deployed near bases, aircraft need to be deployed at air bases, but we can deploy this anti-air gun site just in our allied territory here and hopefully sort of shadow this army division back. AA gun sites will be destroyed pretty much instantly by anything that isn't an aircraft, and to be honest, by aircraft too, and they get pretty obsolete very quickly. But at the start of the game, before we have surface-to-air missiles and against Gen 1 jets, good enough. And okay, we will run the clock. Our division is running down to the south. We'll move 1 division up. Itazuke Barracks reports complete. That means all these divisions are loaded, so I can just click over here and it'll launch transport planes which will deploy these US divisions. We'll move the anti-aircraft guns behind them. We'll move these divisions up just a little bit. And then what I'll do is order them to entrench. Because hopefully that will be that perfect combination of far enough up to keep the North Koreans on us, so to speak. We've also landed our first division there, so we'll ship that landing ship back over there. And I'm just going to form this little bunker here. You can see the South Koreans have moved into travel mode. Divisions don't just entrench, they can move into this mode where you can see the tanks get put on transporters. They move faster, but they can't fight. It takes some time to transition between phases. So if you ambush someone, it can go badly for them. Similarly, breaking through a defensive position can be very difficult. Let's just make sure everyone is entrenching. Move this army division to the gap in the middle. Anti-air gun sight behind. One poor South Korean division decided that it was going to be really, really brave and try and defend Seoul. We're not that brave. You can see our first North Korean bombers are coming over. We didn't get the kill on either of those, unfortunately, but good enough for the moment. I could build a second gun sight, but I just want to get the first cruiser up first. This would probably score kills on fighters, not probably enough firepower to get kills on bombers, but it is what it is. Okay, first cruiser deployed. I'm going to drop it in the sea off Korea, so we don't have to wait for all these other ships to arrive. As you can see, they're on their way, but they will take a while. That carrier is 6.5 minutes away, and the mission timer is 60 minutes, so yeah, it'll be a bit. Cruisers, as I said, these are the bombardment vessels, especially early in the game. Later on, they're missile carriers. Expensive investments, but they can beat up ground units, and early on, ground units don't have many options. Later on, you can get anti-ship missile, coastal batteries, that kind of stuff. Start of the game, it's just anti-coastal guns, which don't really work particularly well. You'll notice everything has, admittedly, a larger range than it really should, given reality, but given you play on a globe scale map, I can understand the decision to abstract unit ranges and give everything a radius that isn't just that would realistically just be a tiny circle around the ship. So we're going to be shelling some North Korean divisions and trying to knock out as many as possible. Here comes another North Korean bomber. Let's see if we can shoot this one down. That's promising. There we are, scratch one. And given air bases only have 5 strategic bombers in them, that's not bad. Now, obviously, this wouldn't actually represent North Koreans having like a B-52 or anything like that. We don't even have B-52s at this point. But it is what it is. That landing ship has landed another division. We'll bring that up. Our entrenchments are starting to pop, which is good. We'll drop this resupply ship over here. The green circle is the healing radius, which is the magic green bubble that we want our divisions to be inside. We'll keep an eye on our divisions, and if anyone gets too damaged, we'll pull them to the south so that we don't lose them. Looks like it's going to be this guy who's being focused the most. But yes, I imagine that's probably a medium bomber being abstracted with the strategic bomber category, which is fine by me. And what I'll do in just a minute is pull, like I said, keep an eye. I'm not sure this guy's damaged quite enough yet. But just to be safe, let's start evacuating him because it'll take a moment to de-entrench him. And they'll be able to engage him for a little bit after he moves. We don't have a tech advantage or anything at this stage of the game. We're still using World War II kit. They're using World War II-ish kit. I could bring my aircraft in, but like I said, I don't want to lose a bunch of stuff in the big fighter fight early on. I want to save my aircraft for later on after we've upgraded the tech level. We're starting to thin them out, as you can see. We've identified our first Soviet technology, nuclear survival plans, which reduces the damage to your cities if they're struck by nuclear weapons. Hopefully not going to be a problem, but just in case it is, let's steal it until we locate something better. Second cruiser is up. So we can focus our firepower on knocking out these divisions as fast as possible. Seoul is 55 seconds from being occupied. This division's going to make, hopefully, a narrow escape. I'll take it, given the circumstances. But as you can see, the North Koreans have basically run out of steam. And I think with that much firepower on the field, we should have this under control. Don't think we lost no divisions in the process, which is good because it saves me having to build more. And everything we don't build can be research investment instead. 33 seconds, he'll be dead before then. Our first submarines are arriving. Keep the landing ships out of the way. And that's it. I think we are ready to move back up to Seoul. And we'll push the cruisers up along the coast with this resupply ship to give us fire support as we go. The units, as long as they're within range of the resupply ship, will heal while moving. So we'll be slowly regenerating these decisions as we march up towards the 38th parallel. We'll also bring up that anti-air gun sight. And we've got shells coming in. Okay. Looks like they have fixed coastal guns. Like I said, these are not particularly good because it is just old-fashioned artillery shooting at ships. But we should still knock them out. Okay, we've moved our troops up to Pyongyang. I've also created a combat engineer with this forward operating base. Essentially, function is that land carrier that can deploy that healing infrastructure. I've also built a few more anti-air gun sites because one wasn't doing the job. I've moved troops up to Chongjin, and now we have double resupply ships so they can heal each other, and then eventually one will transfer over to the west coast once the other ships start to arrive. So I built up a couple more units, indulged a little bit in overbuilding. I'm doing 100% Defense Research Agency, but at this point, we've basically beaten Challenge 1 of the mission. So Challenge 1 is surviving that initial North Korean push. Once we seize this, spoiler alert, things will escalate even more. So we're already expecting a Chinese rush in the near future. So we'll see how that goes. And then if we provoke it even further, certain other interested parties might decide to get involved as well. For the moment though, there is going to be a whole bunch of Chinese divisions incoming. Cruiser gunfire is going to be absolutely critical. We're digging in as many divisions as we can. Might even bring up reinforcements, I'll think about that. But yeah, we don't even have a tech advantage. So it's just going to be a head-to-head slugging match with us having the advantage of naval gunfire support and being entrenched. Them have the advantage of the numbers you would expect of the Chinese volunteer army. So I've clustered in a whole bunch of divisions. We're dug in, we're entrenching, we're going to hold Chongjin. We've annexed the area, and the main development is that technically that makes the Soviet Union hostile, in the same sense that China is like, oh yeah, we're sending volunteers. The Soviet Union has started sending volunteer aircraft across my border. So I'm going to respond by sending some volunteer high explosive shells across their border to the airbase near Vladivostok, so they also don't get any ideas about potentially sending nuclear weapons our way. They should only have air-delivered nukes. So robbing them of the opportunity, probably the best way to prevent a escalation. I'm going to set up a situation over here. I'm going to set up a situation here where the carriers are hanging out, destroyers are sort of bottling them up in case there are submarines, with as much shore bombardment going on as possible. But we're basically raining shells in as much as we can at this point. There's a Soviet volunteer strategic bomber. Let's bring another resupply ship in. I love those things. And back over to 100% science to finally finish Defense Research Agency. I'm spying on the Soviets. We'll try and grab weapon modernization because at the moment we're using World War II stuff. We're using Garans and M1s, and M1s. What I really want is, you know, the traditional arm of the free world, the AK. Oh, but yes, by the way, my traditional method for bypassing the fact that I'm not sending my fighters forward or investing in SAMs yet, just destroy their air bases. Doesn't work if they build them further back, but for the ones that are really close to the front, if you have naval superiority, seems to work a treat. Anyway, Chinese are massing up. Let's hope the firepower is enough to hold them back. Okay, we're about to finish the Defense Research Agency, and there's a whole bunch of more Soviet volunteers on their way. So as you can see, I'm also taking the rare decision to expose carrier aviation, even though they haven't been upgraded yet. Send them out. Now, that research tech doesn't just make you research faster, it allows you to build a research center, which increases research even more. So we'll quickly 100% build that, and then swap back to more research. But let's shell these Soviet divisions, because they'll start moving in a minute. I'll plop the research center down here, and then once we clear out these Soviets, I think it's time to take the next escalation step and move into China. Because if I can move divisions to Shenyang and Dalian at best, these bombardment vessels can cover them fairly effectively. Hopefully that'll cause the Chinese to vector more divisions into this area here, rather than over here, where I can hit them, and continue to prevent them accumulating in a critical mass that could actually threaten my big defensive mass that I have going around Pyongyang at the moment. Okay, so we have crossed the border, which is presumably pissing everyone off, but you know what? It works to our advantage. I've pushed the orbital, not orbital bombardment, that's later in the tech tree. I'm not even joking, there's orbital bombardment satellites later in the tech tree. I pushed our shore bombardment force over here to, as I said, beat up the Chinese armies as they march via Beijing towards the front. I'm going to try and create a second sort of cluster of forces around here, bring forward the forward operating base to repair them, but not push into Harbin or further north until I'm absolutely sure I can support the salient. I get nervous moving away from the cruiser gunfire because they've been what's keeping me alive so far, but if we bring in more divisions, bulk that out, hold these cities with a bare minimum of UN forces, then we can make do with an economy of force there in order to concentrate here and then eventually push north. Oh, and speaking of economy of force, our spies have scored their first win. They've grabbed nuclear survival plans. I'm going to set them on second generation weapon modernization next. So that tech, like I said, not super important, but it reduces the number of techs they have that we don't have, which removes it from the pool of stuff that we can steal. It continues to advance the tech tree. I'll take it, but I'd like something useful next, please, as additional divisions stream into our forward position. Like that. That's timing. Yeah, we're in a slogging match with some Soviet divisions right now. I'm going to have to pull some of these divisions back because they're giving us the perfume treatment, and our divisions do not have protection against it. We do not have sea-burn protection. We can't get sea-burn defense until the next tech tree tier. I could rush it, but I don't want the tech inefficiency. So right now we just suffer. But we did grab weapon modernization. So the American military has selected as its new service rifle the M insert designation here, which is totally not a adapted AK in some sort of NATO caliber. But you know what? Firepower is firepower, and I didn't have to do the research, so I'm going to call that efficient. That said, the Soviets are really pissing me off with their special weapons, let's put it that way. I'll vector in more carrier air support, preserve what divisions I can, but yeah. We're definitely making progress. It's just the Soviet volunteer formations are much more of a pain than the Chinese volunteer formations. They have better, they're not Tech 2, but they have better small arms, they have special weapons, they've just got a lot of the small stuff. So they're not infinitely better, they're not a tech tier better, but they're significantly better. That said, I'm working on early cruise missile technology. These are not superb, they're not particularly accurate, they're the first generation of cruise missiles, but they should give the cruisers in particular the ability to hit much further, especially against fixed infrastructure. So definitely a useful tech to have, especially with the research center boosting output. Let's steal second generation aircraft. Okay, wow, that was even faster than the first time I did it. Second generation aircraft with 37 minutes to play. I mean, I'll bloody take it. So yeah, we now have second-gen aircraft flying off our carriers and operating out of air bases. Not the bombers yet, haven't upgraded those, we will. I'm also researching the first generation of guided air-to-ground weapons for those second-gen aircraft. These are still manually guided, they're very early, they're not great, but they're something. So what do we have to steal next? Nothing for the moment. I mean, I'll keep spying. But at this stage, I'm just thinking, we'll need to pick up, I'll pick up more aviation tech. We basically want to kick ourselves over to space age because there's some things in Tech 2 that I'm really interested in. Missile-armed warships. Actually, the combo I really want, assuming the next mission is Cuba, and Cuba is going to be covered with anti-aircraft missiles and anti-ship missiles, and we're going to need to either beat one or the other, realistically. We can either throw so much air power at it the SAMs don't work, or we can throw so much naval power at it their coastal defences don't work, and then we use the ships to smash the SAMs or the aircraft to smash the coastal batteries. I think we go the naval route, and I think we do it by going for CWIS early, if we can get to Tech 2. Because CWIS, ahead of time, these shoot down missiles. So if we could get to CWIS, Tech 2 ships, and chaff and flares, which reduces the accuracy and damage of enemy missiles, anti-ship missiles, SAMs, and anti-air missiles, both against your aircraft and against your ships. I could layer the defences together and maybe have a navy that could survive their coastal batteries and then just shell them. And then once we rip open their defences, then the aircraft would go in. I don't know, I'm assuming that's what the Cuba mission will look like. I'm just trying to think ahead as best as possible based on what I can guess. But I'm thinking a well-equipped navy might be the way to go. So we'll get these air-to-ground weapons, we'll probably get long-range bombers, and then if we can bump this up to tech level 2, we want missile-armed warships, we want CWIS, and we want chaff and flares, ideally. On the plus side though, the mission is mostly won at this point, I think. We have enough fire superiority, our aircraft are being upgraded, and in fact in a moment they're going to get air-to-ground guided weapons which will be even more deadly than what they had before. So at this stage I think we've basically got the field control. There you are, see now they're using air-to-ground missiles. I'd also like 3rd gen aircraft. We might be able to fit it all in. I'd like 3rd gens. I'd like to go into Cuba with F4 Phantoms and SR-71 Blackbirds. That would be sick. Is that a Chinese carrier? I knew the AI could be adaptive, but the idea is like, oh yeah, we're not going to keep sending armies at you because that's not working. We're going to send a fleet at you. I mean, props for creativity. Greatest naval battle since World War II? People's Republic of China versus United States Navy? Well, 1 US Navy carrier and 1 British carrier. All right, let's deploy the fighters. I think their tech disadvantage is going to be crushing though. We'll sink the resupply ship first. There we go. We'll sink the destroyers, because they're a threat to our carriers with gunfire. We should have the tech advantage just to a crushing degree here though. Yeah, this is a turkey shoot, but although I hear torpedoes. I thought I heard torpedoes. Maybe not. Maybe it's trauma. All right, SAMs are about to finish. Let's see if that punches us over to the next tech level. But as long as we've got control of this section, we're good.
Complete.
Yep, there we are, space age. So, how long do we have? Because this timer, I don't want to finish the mission early because this is basically Congress's patience with us, right? If I win too soon, they'll cut the defense budget. But if I drag it out right into the last possible moment, then win, I can milk the defense budget, which I'm not actually using to win the war in Korea, I'm using it to win the next war. But what else is new when it comes to the military using the defense budget the way it thinks it should be used? So let's see what we can fit into 29 minutes. CWIS, essential, 13:15. 3rd generation aircraft, 10 minutes 18. Ground forces IFVs, 15. Seaburn, 19:15. Still got room to play with. Chaff flares, 21:42. Approved missile guidance, 29:02. I like this lineup. Because you know what? Improved missile guidance doesn't give you anything, but it unlocks the next level of missiles. And I'm looking at these precision cruise missiles. I'm looking at them real closely. And this is early infantry fighting vehicles will bump us from M48s to Leopard 1s and from M113s to Martyrs in terms of the model. But this is the Tech 2. This is the mainline upgrade for armies here. So this will change the unit model and it's better everything. Speed, health, damage. It's the good stuff. Plus we'll get extra survivability and sea burn defenses, which we really, really need. All right. Nuke research, missile research, steal that from the Soviets later. Conventional superiority is where it's at. CIWS, third generation aircraft, IFVs, sea burn defenses. I'll play around with the order. We'll go IFVs, sea burn. Yeah, we'll do this order. We wanted the armies upgraded first, but I'll take it. 100% research go. Okay, I'm moving up to Harbin. I've identified a division, and to be honest, I'm just going to sick the carrier aviation on it. Because even though it's dug in, it doesn't have access to man pads or anything that allow it to defend itself. So we'll just eat it away with that. While the tech rolls out the IFVs, so we'll see our upgrade to our troops in just a minute. There we are, beautiful new tanks and IFVs. So that should finally give us the qualitative advantage I've wanted. We now have a significant advantage over the Chinese and even some over the Soviets. And once we have chemical protection, their aggressive seasoning of our divisions will no longer deliver the results it once did. Let's vector in air power. This is the game at the moment. Just continue vectoring in airstrikes. I could use the war room, but I'm saving this for Cuba. I'll show this off next mission. All right, I've switched out, so we have sweet new missile-armed ship models. Rather than just cruisers having missiles, they have a lot of missiles, and destroyers now have cruise missiles as well. Fourth gen aircraft are on the way. Not fourth. That would be insane. No, third gens. So we're going to roll out the good old F4 Phantom in a bit of seconds. We stole the jamming technology from the Soviets, which I don't want to use, but all tech is good tech. We've occupied Harbin, and when I'm ready, we'll push north. I could automate these airstrikes, but I'm happy with what I'm doing. All right, in 7 minutes, 19 seconds, we'll be done with our final research of the mission. And then Congress can finally get the win they've been waiting for. And there we go. Research complete, outstanding. There's no way Beijing and Moscow are going to let this keep going now. The war is as good as finished. All objectives completed. Mission accomplished. You have secured a future for democracy in Korea. All missions complete. No nuclear weapons used. Civilian casualties minimized. Technology progress. Promising. Just don't ask the accountants how long I dragged it out for. Now, this was the other cool element I wanted to show off. So in between missions in the campaign, based on what you accomplished last time, you get a certain number of points that you can spend on a combination of extra technology or taking extra units into the next mission. So how do you mix and match? Because like the greed option is to go tech, but if you take major platforms and units and you're able to get good results out of them, then maybe you accomplish more in the mission quicker. So it's Cuba. What are they going to throw at us? I would bet Cuba will have all the missile systems you can imagine. Anti-ship missiles, surface-to-air missiles, ballistic missiles. But if I was to throw a spanner in the works as a dev, there's one of two angles I could take. Either the Cubans will already have nuclear warheads, I'm hoping not, or you'll play on the things that actually happened, which is Soviet submarines with nuclear torpedoes. In our timeline, thankfully, the one time they came close to firing one of the senior officers on board said no. And they required unanimity to fire, so they didn't launch a nuclear torpedo at the American ships. They were confused, they thought they were being attacked, and luckily we didn't see one used. I am betting that we will see nuclear torpedoes in our future. So, with that in mind, I think supersonic bombers, because we'll probably have air bases and having more bombers is good. So having the technology unlocked means that if we have any specialized air bases, we'll get high-speed bombers. They're mostly nuclear weapon delivery systems, but they can drop conventional bombs, so they'll bulk out the B-52s. I didn't get to jamming in time, so we'll add jamming. So chaff and flare countermeasures. So we have CWIS and chaff and flare on our ships. That leaves us 290 points. I could buff the submarine tech a bit. I could take both radar techs. I could take a unit. If I just boost the targeting radar, yeah, okay. So what I can do is I can take a 180 tech, either portable electronics or improved sonar. So this is increased vision and small arms range and accuracy and damage, because we got optics that are usable, and or we can go improve sonar. Submarines are a problem, so let's go improve sonar. And then let's boost our anti-submarine capabilities just slightly with a single destroyer and an extra naval helicopter and a multi-role attacker. All right, I like this lineup. Sonar, pulse Doppler, targeting radar, chaff and flare countermeasures, early supersonic bombers. Let's go. Yes, nuclear war is less fun in real life, I'm sure. Okay, tensions between the United States and Soviet Union are rising. In response to the US stationing nuclear weapons in NATO member states like Turkey, the USSR has agreed to station ballistic missiles in Cuba to safeguard the communist government from American interference. The threat of nuclear-armed Soviet ally, right in the America's backyard, threatens the global balance of power. After diplomatic talks, the US has agreed to withdraw its weapons from Turkey. So we're going old history. But the Soviets have cited the threat from nuclear-armed Britain and France as a reason to deliver their nuclear weapons to Cuba. Okay. So we found out about the weapons before they're delivered. We've said, hey, we'll take our nukes out of Turkey. The world's gone, hey, that's amazing. The Soviet Union has spat in our face, which means we now have the diplomatic high ground. Okay, so they've tweaked history a little bit to give us some diplomatic cover to invade. They've had the Americans try to play nice. The Soviets say, nah. And then we have a small window before, presumably before the Soviet nukes arrive. Cool. Okay, let me do an inventory. Okay, so here's the go. We have a bunch of divisions, like 9 or 10, spread around various bases in the United States. I'm going to put them all into their bases, because what's in our future is an airborne invasion. So I'm looking at these objectives. Destroy all the MRBM launchers on Cuba, easy, I think. Bomber bases, yep. Do not take more than 5 million casualties, I hope not. The secondary missions are basically invade and capture Cuba, or wipe out 75% of the population. However, I'm not a genocidal bloody maniac, so we're going to go low collateral damage. I'm going to find all my divisions. I forgot to do this last time. We're going to disable the... We stole this... these shells from the Soviets. I'm going to disable them so my units do not use them, because otherwise there's a risk to any cities nearby when we use them. We also have some special operations teams. We could deploy them to Cuba, but I don't think we have the time. So instead I'm going to have one guard Langley and one move down towards Miami. We'll also have our air bases patrol. We'll turn off auto engage for our air bases. We have a lot of air power, by the way. We have 4 normal air bases, so 20 strategic bombers and 40 fighters. 3 specialized air bases, so 15 high-speed bombers and 6 SR-71 Blackbirds. I wonder if this is meant to be shot down, if it's a U-2, but because we're ahead of time, it won't be. It's kind of funny. We have a cruiser out here already, the Canberra. So I'm going to spawn my destroyer over here and move it over. The reason being, they can then combine their CWIS fire. 2 ships close together should defend against missiles better than 1. We'll also take our small fleet we have here, which is 3 destroyers and a carrier. Turn off auto engage. We'll move them all south, but we'll move them south in a kind of clump, again, for greater missile protection. The plan here, I think, is pretty simple. We'll fly the divisions from the west coast over to the east. We'll put everyone in their bases. We'll use the ships to destroy anti-aircraft defenses and whatever. Let's let the spy plane fly over, and I will set research in just a second. Let's just let... Oh, I know what I want to do. I'll build a research center 100%. There we go. Oh, here we go. Aerial reconnaissance indicates a multitude of advanced Soviet-made anti-ship and anti-air defenses. Called it. We have a short window to destroy the launch sites and bomber bases before the Soviets can reinforce them. Nuclear weapons are authorized, but be careful how the Soviets will react. Good luck. Nuclear weapons may be authorized, and we have a shit ton of them. 10 100-kiloton bombs, 10 light 250-kiloton bombs, 3 heavy 10 megaton bombs, 10 MRBMs, 5 250-kiloton, 5 100. That's a lot of nukes, but you may authorize them. I'm just not going to use them. Instead, I'm going to exploit my hopefully soon-to-be precision cruise missiles. Although we'll want to go complex research computers. I might not. We're going to use our cruise missiles to punch holes in their air bases, hopefully. But mostly we're going to exploit the fact that our ships have jammers and CWIS. And they should be able to stand up to really basic bitch anti-ship missiles. That's my hope. We'll spy on the Soviet Union, identify tech, we'll steal stuff to catch up, and hopefully we can get this done before they can react. I also have a submarine and a landing ship. I'm not going to use the landing ship because I fear submarines. We're going to do an airborne landing. We're going to do this airborne, and the submarine, we'll send it over, but it's hopelessly outdated, USS Scorpion. So we'll do our best. That's the setup. Let's get to it. That said, looking at the time, I think we're going to play Cuba and probably the mission after, which I think is Vietnam next time. I hope you've enjoyed. I'm having great fun with this title. It's a little bit different from some of the other fare on the channel, and we're still very much in the early stages, the simplistic stage of the game. Korea is a bit of an introductory mission, and I'd run it before. This will be new to me, as will Vietnam and everything afterwards. So I hope you're enjoying the title. I hope you're enjoying the return of Perun Gaming. And once I have access to my other PC again, I'll go back to recording other titles as well. So Terran, Victor, and X4 absolutely not gone from the channel, as are some of the others that have been suggested. This is just something I'm going to mix in to accommodate my travel schedule as well. Hope you're all enjoying. Hope you're looking forward to cruise missiles and CWIS over Cuba next episode. I'll see you all again then.